Welcome back to the gospel. This is our fantasy football show, and we have a lot to go over. A lot of things are happening in the wonderful world of fantasy football. Some things aren't so wonderful. A lot of injuries going on. We'll navigate that with you, but I am your Jose, along with my guy, my co-host, the fantasy Nostradamus, young Vander. Holla at the people, my guy.
What's going on out there?
So today we're going to go over your news and notes. We're going to do a little bit of buy or sell, and then we'll also go over a few pivots based on injury and current news. Kind of go from there. But let's go right ahead and hop into it. I do want to remind you guys that for those that are listening out there in podcast world, you can actually see us now on the in the Facebook group. That's the fantasy football, not the fantasy football Fiend. We're past that now. The Gospel Sports Truth Facebook group and on YouTube at the Gospel STP. So again, that is the Gospel Sports Truth Facebook group and on YouTube at the Gospel STP. Moving right along now, let's go right into quarterbacks. For those of you that had the unfortunate experience of having Bryce Young as a starting quarterback, even in a two quarterback league, you have had to pivot because he no longer has a starting job. There hasn't been a timetable that's been put on that as far as if this is rest of the season, if it's until Andy Dalton has a bad game and then he'll be put back in there. We don't know how that's going to work out. What we do know is that the team has indicated that he won't be traded. So what do you take from this situation? Fantasy wise, are we staying away from both, or is it if you're in a 2 QB league and you got to trot somebody out there, keep both of them just in case Carolina goes back and forth? What are we doing with this situation? How do you feel about the situation in general?
I think it's a complete confidence killer, to be honest with you. You just got drafted last year, #1 overall, and now you're 2 weeks into your sophomore season, and you're already being shelved. It's kind of hard to go back from that. Once you bench someone, it's kind of hard to bring them back in because at that point, their confidence is just gone. I think if you are in a two quarterback league, I definitely would want to be an Andy Dalton owner. But in my opinion, I think this sheds light on a guy like Adam Thielen. I think he's the winner in this whole ordeal because him and Andy Dalton have seemed to have a pretty good rapport. As you can see last year, when Andy Dalton got a chance to play, I want to see he had maybe like 11 catches that game, maybe like 12 or so targets. So if you're in a DFS for the week or maybe in a pinch, fire up Adam Thielen. In my opinion, I think he's going to come out and have one of those hot tub time machine games this upcoming week.
Russell Wilson is getting in limited practice. You know, he was dealing with that calf injury since week 1. But on the other hand, Pittsburgh is undefeated currently. If Pittsburgh is still undefeated when Russell Wilson is finally healthy, do they pivot or do they not fix what isn't broken?
According to the record, you stay with the quarterback. But the Steelers are not winning games, because of Fields. So it's kind of a tricky thing. I think they'll stay with him due to the record, but it's not because of the production because he's not doing anything special, in my opinion. I think that defense is the reason they're afloat at this moment. But I think, when it all comes down to it, they'll probably stay with Fields at the QB.
Jordan Love, his status is kind of up in the air for week 3. He is practicing after dealing with the knee/ankle injury from over there in Brazil, but they're non-committal on saying whether or not he's actually going to play. With Jordan Love, is this a guy that if you have him, you want to go ahead and try to move him down the road as soon as news comes out that he's coming back? Or if you can't move him before then, do you just hang on to him?
Well, if you're in a one quarterback league and you had Jordan Love, and if you happen to be maybe like a Jaden Daniels owner, then at this point, this is probably a person that you can use to maybe strengthen another position on your team. But if you're in a two quarterback league, likely you're probably not in a position you can move him. And if you really drafted Jordan Love to be the guy, and maybe you're just playing a backup now, you probably want to stick with him. Looking at the actual diagnosis, I think that he may sit this week and then play week 4. That would be my guess. So even though it seems he's at practice, I think that maybe hold him out one more week and then let him go, fire him up in week 4.
Justin Herbert is still dealing with the ankle injury. We don't exactly know how significant it is, but we do know that he wasn't at practice and that he has a significant limp right now. There aren't very many days between now and go time.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, you always want to have a backup plan, but do you believe that he's going to be able to go this week? And if he can't go this week and you're in a pinch, maybe you were the, Brees Young owner or something like that, do you go ahead and pick up Easton Stick, who's his current backup, and throw him in there if need be? Or if Justin doesn't go, just go a completely different direction. Now, if we're talking about Superflex, then you might be able to put in, obviously, another running back, wide receiver, tight end, whatever the case may be. But if we're talking 2 QB and you don't have any other options, you kind of got to do what you got to do. But in a Superflex type of a situation, would you be okay with playing his backup? And do you feel that he's going to go this week, seeing as how he currently has a significant limp? And if he does go this week, do you trust him?
Well, I think he's going to play this week. That's for one. But there will be a mobility issue. So he won't be moving around too much. Probably going to be a mannequin in that pocket. And this is the team to be that with. So I think you need to find your replacement. But that replacement isn't Easton Stick. That replacement got to be someone else. I mean, I don't want to put Stick. If he was to sit, I still wouldn't be comfortable playing Stick against the Steelers.
Okay.
I mean, we've seen what TJ's been doing. You know what I mean? So, hopefully you can find another guy. You know what I'm saying? Maybe you got Andy Dalton. If you're in the Superflex and you have additional QB, or if you're in a 1 QB league, I'm sure there's so many more options on the free agent list. Don't play any of these guys unless you're just kind of forced to.
Got a few issues going with running backs down in Miami. Not only is Tua Tagovailoa hurt, but Jeff Wilson Jr. is hurt.
Mm-hmm.
Raheem Mostert is also hurt. So right now, Devon Achane, who had a great week last week, but he was a little nicked up going into the week. Are we now ensuring that we have Jalen Wright in tow? Because it seems like this entire backfield at some point in time during the season is going to end up missing time. It's just unfortunate. The type of backs that they currently have employed in their backfield are just ones that don't stay healthy but for so long, but tend to be pretty good when they are healthy. So how do we feel about Achane this week? And are we grabbing up Jalen Wright, which we told people to do a while ago? So if you haven't and he's available, but yeah, how do you feel about that whole situation going on in Miami with all of their players actually being that Skylar Thompson is going to be at the helm this week?
Right. Most of practice. I think even if he does play this week, I'm all in on Achane. I think last week showed where they're about. I mean, this dude, they're gonna just, he's the workhorse at this point. I mean, if you watch last week's game, they gave him all he can handle. If you look at the week 1 game, Mostert didn't get much attention as well. Everybody thought he's gonna be the starter. Achane's gonna be more of a change of pace, but that really wasn't the case. So now that Mostert's coming back off injury, I don't think it's gonna be much of a difference. I like Achane a lot. I'm playing him, especially in DFS. And with this QB issue, that means a lot more dump offs. So he probably catch a lot more balls out of the backfield as well, not just run the ball. So, yeah, I think Achane should be definitely RB1 this week for sure.
Not to switch over to buy or sell, but with Achane now getting all this additional usage and his propensity to get hurt, do you sell him based on the usage now so you don't have to bite the bullet when the inevitable comes? Or are we keeping our fingers crossed and hoping that what has tended to happen to him in the past doesn't rear its ugly head again?
I mean, if you can get a ransom for him, I mean, why not? But I'm not selling low. If that's the question, if you're gonna sell them high. You know what I mean? And if you want to try to up the ante, you can wait one additional week and let him have another, two back-to-back good games, and then maybe you can get really top dollar for him. But I'm not just throwing him out on the market unless you just that loaded at running back. But the way these guys been um, going down, you may want to hold on to him.
Kenneth Walker is still dealing with that oblique injury. He is still not practicing. So it's up in the air right now. They aren't really giving a prognosis, but the fact that it's now going into Thursday and he hasn't practiced yet, that's kind of telling, especially since how he didn't play on last week. Is Kenneth Walker someone that you want to buy low on, or the fact that he's already hurt and he tends to be hurt, you're going to just stay away from him this year?
I mean, if you're a Kenneth Walker owner, you listen to the show, we've been telling you they have Charbonnet ready to go. So you should already be prepared for this, knowing this has come. I don't think he's going to play this week. That's for one. Charbonnet is also a pretty good fill-in play this week. Really sweet matchup as they're playing the Miami Dolphins, right? Yeah, so they're not that good against the run. So I like Charbonnet, even though he doesn't really run the ball well, he does catches well. And when it is goal line time, he's the one that's going to get it. So, but again, Kenneth Walker, I don't know if anybody's going to buy it. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if anybody's going to buy it. It's a flood car. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, it's a nice car, but it was in Katrina. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know if you're going to be able to, a salvage title. People don't like to get those cars. And this is what that is at this current time.
We got a couple of running backs that are tending to injuries, actually both hip injuries, Tyler Algier and Aaron Jones. Tyler Algier is a handcuff, and Aaron Jones has a handcuff. How are we feeling about both of them? And is this the week to go ahead and grab up Ty Chandler before Aaron Jones has his yearly few weeks off in the middle of the season?
Yo, Ty Chandler is definitely a waiver ad. Kind of surprised he got some love last week. And actually looked pretty decent. He's definitely a waiver ad, somebody you want to have on your team. As far as Algier, I think he's a hole. I don't want to move him. He's an extremely valuable handcuff because we don't know what's going to happen with Bijan as far as him remaining healthy for the rest of the year. He did get some carries as well in that Eagle game, so he's a guy I want to hold on. But as far as Chandler, he should be one of the top ads on your waiver this week.
Rashard White dealing with a growing injury. Those growing injuries can be kind of tricky, but he did practice on a limited base on Wednesday, so that tells me that unless there's a setback, 9 times out of 10, he is going to attempt to go. Bucky Irvin, he is getting a little bit of love, and we're going to kind of see how that goes here in the near future as far as the production side of things. But we did talk about Bucky Irvin a little bit on the last show, saying that he's another guy that you may want to look out for. But how do we feel about Bucky Irvin if White continues to play? Obviously, if the injury is as such that he doesn't play, then Bucky Irvin is definitely someone that you want to have. But if we're looking on the side of things where White is still out there, how do you feel about Bucky Irvin's prognosis going forward?
Again, listeners of the show already know. I've been spoke on Bucky Irvin. Rashad White, even before the injury, he does not run the ball very well. Superior pass catcher. Look at the numbers. And this is a continuing thing. He has started this season off. He's not a good runner. I mean, he's been catching the ball very well. Bucky Irvin has seemed to be the better runner out of the two. And I think as the season goes on, Bucky's going to start getting some of that early down work. And White may be more the change of pace and more the receiving into that goal line as well. I think Bucky Irvin can very well take over that role. And the injury is not helping anyone, especially low extremity, soft tissue, something like a groin. That's something that can linger and always flare back up. So I love Boogie Irvin. I think he's also a good waiver ad for the week, and he's one of those handcuffs that I would love to hold and wait and see because he can very well jump into the RB, uh, the bottom RB1 category if a significant injury happens to him.
Tajay Spears didn't practice on Wednesday. He's dealing with the ankle injury. Tony Pollard is going to get the load this week. So that's something that you want to keep in mind as you look at your DFS lineups. Josh Jacobs is dealing with a back issue. And one of his counterparts, Marshawn Lloyd, has been put on IR, which means Emmanuel Wilson may be the only guy. Chris Brooks is there. He's there, but nobody of vast importance. Emmanuel Wilson may be another one of those guys that you may want to look at as far as waiver is concerned. He had a few runs that were pretty impressive when he was given the opportunity. So if Jacobs is continuing to deal with the back issue, normally those just don't flare up and then go away, especially within a season. As we go week to week, that back issue may either worsen or just not go away. So how are we feeling about Emmanuel Wilson going forward?
I mean, at this point, he's a valuable handcuff. I think if you're in a deeper league, he may be available. Somebody you want to get. I think if you're in a shorter league, and you have a shorter roster space, he's not somebody I really want to get and hold. If you're in a cowboy league, and that's one of those ones with no waiver, just keep your news on and stay tuned as Sunday games come on and Jacobs go down. Just have in your mind the name Emmanuel Wilson, so you go ahead and grab him before anyone else does. But he's not a person I want to hold on my roster and just wait for injury to happen. But there was somebody else you spoke of before him, right? You did speak about Spears. So Spears actually came out and said he's going to play this week. So I don't think Pollard's going to actually get the load. It still may be a little shared there this week.
Last but definitely not least, there's a big issue going on in Kansas City. Isaiah Pacheco may or may not play the rest of the regular season with a broken fibula. They're giving him somewhere in the neighborhood of about 8 weeks right now, if all things go according to plan. He did have successful surgery on Wednesday, so he's expected to return in 8 weeks. We'll have to see how that goes. But on the other side of things, we now have to figure out whether or not the used to be there and came back Kareem Hunt, the rookie standout preseason Carson Steele, or the wily old veteran Samaje Perine, is this just going to be everyone gets a bite at the apple, hot hand type of situation, and you're never going to know what to do, so it's better to do nothing? Or is there a guy out of those guys that you feel could end up being the bottle rocket that you want to have now before it just pops off?
Well, I know Andy Reid come out and said that it's possible that Kareem can't play in week 3. I thought that was interesting. I think if you're in the PPR league, Samaje Perine will probably be one of the guys you want to own. He's probably more in that McKinnon role. He's still learning the offense. But I think if you're in a standard league, and the guys could probably get the early down work and also the goal line work, is Carson Steele. So I think Carson Steele is the guy I would go after off top. We're going to see some games where Carson Steele's going to have more points. I think we're going to see some games where Perine going to have more points due to the number of receptions he's going to catch. And Perine himself, though, he's not a small guy. He's actually a bigger third down back. So he probably can get a little run too. But I think most of the goal line work and, those short yardage things of that nature going to go to Carson Steele. I think Andy Reid trusts this guy. So I'm going to go Carson Steele for me.
Moving on over to wide receiver, Tyler Lockett has a limited practice. A Metcalf didn't practice. So there are a few injuries going over there in Seattle, who will be going up against the Dolphins this week. Nico Collins didn't practice due to his hip and foot injuries. These are some guys that 2 out of the 3, regardless of your league size, they're on your roster. And depending on your league size, Tyler Lockett may be someone that you were utilizing. How do we feel about them going into week 3? And are we pivoting? I know this past week, JSN, Jackson Smith and Jigba, he had a pretty decent week. Saw his name flying off a few waiver wires. Is this going to be the type of scenario in Seattle where, because they have to use him, they realize what they have in him, and then they never go away from him again? Or is this just going to be once the quote unquote big dogs are running again, he's going to kind of dwarf back down?
Well, JSN was one of those guys I was thinking is going to have a pretty solid year. And last week, he finally, showed some life. I think that continues this week. While they play the Miami Dolphins, Metcalf, who I think will play, will see a lot of Jalen Ramsey. So with him seeing a lot of Jalen Ramsey, I think this is another opportunity for JSN to go out there and show and improve. So I like JSN. He's one of the better ads this week. But now I think if he can, build off of 2 straight weeks, good performances, then maybe that coordinator would say, hey, let's look over here a little bit more and continue and start to phase a guy like Tyler Lockett out of that offense.
What are we doing with the Rams situation? Puka Nakua's out, Kupp is out. I don't know if you want to attempt to depend on a Whittington or a Tyler Johnson or Demarcus Robinson. But right now, those are going to be the guys that you have to choose from.
Yeah.
First and foremost, what are we doing with Kupp? Is this a guy that we're going to attempt to sell while he's down, or do you just hang on to Kupp right now? Normally, when Kupp has had these ankle injuries, even when he came back, he wasn't what he was before it, and it tends to kind of go back to being hurt again. So what are we doing with Kupp, and are any of these guys worth putting out there in his stead?
Being that they say they're not going to put him on IR, I think that's a pretty solid sign. So because Puka's on IR, so what's the difference? You know what I'm saying? This is the older guy. In my opinion, I think you hold on to Kupp. I wouldn't sell him unless somebody give you a deal you can't refuse. But I think you hold on to him.
So basically, if you couldn't get what you would have gotten when he was healthy, don't take it now.
Right.
Gotcha. Okay.
Just try to weather the storm. Hopefully, you can stay afloat until his return. But with the team not placing him IR, I think that's pretty decent news. As far as the guys that's in the locker room, man, take your choice. It could be Tyler. It could be DeMarcus. I like Whittington. He has showed some pretty good stuff in the preseason. So I don't know, man. Maybe they'll lean on Kyron Williams a little bit more. So who knows?
Have a couple of wide receivers hurt over there in Minnesota. Right now, Jordan Addison misses practice due to an ankle injury. Justin Jefferson logged a limited practice due to the quad injury that he sustained on this past Sunday. Justin Jefferson, it looks like he's going to go. Addison still dealing with the ankle and did not practice at all. Do we still feel the same hot hand that Sam Darnold has had thus far? And do we feel like Jefferson is going to actually be out there and be 100%? If he's out there at all, obviously, if you got him, you got to start him. Whether his 80% is better than some wide receivers 100%. So, but how do we feel about what's going on in Minnesota and how that's going to look going forward?
No, I mean Jefferson is fine. I think he's going to play this week, so you just fire him up like any other week. I do kind of like Jalen Naylor a little bit. He got a pretty good report, seems, with Sam Darnold as well. So if you're looking for somebody, check out Jalen Naylor. He may be a guy of some interest. This is a pretty good matchup that though they have against Houston this week. So, I mean, temper your expectations. Jefferson can probably see a lot of Stingley this week. Also, some coverage is going his way. So, Naylor could be in position to get a little bit more targets than usual due to the matchup. So, but Sam, hey, I've been telling you guys, Don't be so don't be so shocked. Don't be so startled. I've been banging the table about Sam all season long. I tell you, if you're in one of those, you can grab very late. You did that, and you have so far been rewarded. What can I say?
And that pretty much wraps it up for our news and notes and the waiver part of the show. Let's do a little bit of buy or sell. And I want a little bit of your insight on a few guys that people may be targeting right now or
Mhm.
possibly should. First guy up, Mike Evans, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. It looks as if Chris Godwin right now is the wide receiver that's been going too early and often. If you listen to the show, we were banging that drum in the middle of the offseason when we were talking about the LU wide receivers. I told you guys that the offensive coordinator that's there now came from the Rams, and that Godwin was going to be in the Cooper Cup role, and that's exactly the love that he's getting there. With that being
Mhm.
said, would Mike Evans be someone that you would attempt to buy right now? Or if you have him, would you attempt to sell him? A week ago, he posted 5 catches for 61 yards and 2 touchdowns. But this past week, not quite as much love. But how do you feel about Mike Evans going forward? And is he a guy that you would buy or sell?
He is a guy I would sell,
Okay.
especially if you're in the PPR league. Sell the name. You know, what I mean, this is probably one of the best opportunities you'd be able to sell the name, sell what he done last year. He's one of those guys that's going to give you low output. He's going to have these weeks. He's going to have 50, 60 yards. He's not really a volume guy. He 3, 4, 5 catches maybe some games, but the touchdowns. He's one of those guys. He's kind of like in running back terms, touchdown dependent, right? So he's a touchdown dependent wide receiver, if that makes sense. So if I'm going to get somebody with that can offer me a little bit more volume, um, like his counterpart, Chris Godwin. If somebody going, I would take Chris Godwin and trade for Mike Evans. If I get Godwin and somebody had me a little small piece in there as well, um, yeah, I'll do that, especially in the PPR league. You know what I mean? So Godwin is one of those guys that's how we view running backs in PPR the standard. PPR standard. There's a difference between the two, and that's what Mike Evans is. He's one of those touchdown dependent guys. Never going to give you a lot of catches, but he give you big plays and touchdowns. So yeah, I'm going to say sell, but that doesn't mean just sell them for anything. I mean, if you can get somebody that's going to give you a lot more volume, a lot more output, I'm willing to do it.
Jayden Reed is a guy that had a stellar week one. He was definitely a guy that kind of stood out after his week one performance.
Mhm.
Now, granted, he hasn't had the quarterback that assisted him in that standout performance. Love should be back this week, if not this week, next week for sure. Is Jayden Reed someone that you sell or attempt to sell high on under the auspice that, hey, you saw what he did with Jordan Love and Jordan Love is
Mhm.
on the way back?
Yep.
Or do you wait for Jordan Love to come back and then attempt to sell him? Or is he a guy that you're just going to have to hang on to?
I'm okay with selling Jalen Reed
Okay.
because again, this is a carousel. Guess what? Wicks is going to have a big week when Joe Love get back. Guess what? Dobbs is going to have a big week when Joe Love get back. Guess what? Watson's going to have a big week when Joe Love get back. Who turns it? Who turn is it? Everybody's going to get a shot. Week one just happened to be Jay Reed's week. So this is not consistent. This is not something you're going to see from week to week. I know people want to call him like a low budget Debo Samuel because he sometimes get the carries and different things like that, but it's not quite the same. So I'm okay with trade. I'm okay with definitely trading Jaden Reed. I would have traded him after the first week while he was really hot. You know what I'm saying?
Agreed.
So he's kind of cooled off. You know, since people was able to see a week two. But I'm going to say sell on Jaden Reed.
Now, let's stay with Green Bay here for a moment. What are your thoughts on Josh Jacobs? Is he a guy that you would attempt to sell high on, or that you would attempt to go buy based on his production? Um, he had 32 carries for 151 yards. Now, granted, obviously he wouldn't have had that many carries if they had a different quarterback back there. But do you sell him based on the production that he was able to have, especially with being as how he has the bad back and he's having to shoulder the load, so to speak?
Most definitely. I'm gonna say in sell. Jacobs is one of those guys. I was ahead of my list where you want him to come out of the gate fire, have some really good weeks early, and then sell him at his highest. His schedule is not favorable down the stretch. Uh, he did have Philly, Indiana, which is you know, but he still has Minnesota, Arizona, Houston, Detroit two more times, Chicago, and then when you're in the playoffs, he's gonna have the Saints and Minnesota. No, so you're not gonna be able to rely on him when it's championship time. You know what I mean? So I'm one of those guys that like to look forward, look ahead to see who I'm gonna have available on my team when it's time when you must win. See, right now is when you must win. Can I count on this guy? And like I was saying with Tua, we spoke on about that shows ago. I was like, yeah, he's going, but you can't count on him when it's time. And so he's one of those guys as well. Like sell.
Now, Alvin Kamara has been stellar. You just brought up the Saints. We'll talk about Alvin Kamara and we'll talk about his quarterback, Derek Carr.
Mm-hmm.
These guys that you just ride the hot hand and you expect for them to continue to have the same output that they have had, and you don't really think that you can get what you deserve to get for the two of them at this point? Or are they guys that you would attempt to sell high and hope that they don't continue? Because I don't know that if he continues at the clip that he's at, that you could get anything close to what his value would be right now. But how are you feeling about Alvin Kamara and Derek Carr? And Derek Carr happens to be the number one quarterback in fantasy today. So there's that piece.
And you buy them. You buy and you hold. If you're a Camaro owner, hold them. I've seen some Camaro owners, especially in our league. I know you probably watching. What's up, boy? But they seen the first couple of weeks and they like, oh, Camaro's on the block, and now they want your firstborn child for him. You know what I'm saying? But in my opinion, I think this is a guy you want to hold on to because the schedule is favorable down the stretch. Again, if you love CMC, everybody love the Shanahan offense. People speak of it. Guess what, everybody? It's the same exact offense. So that's why you've seen Kamara kind of coming out of his, because he's in a offense that's using his skill set and going to give him the workload. Kamara's always been one of those change of pace guys, whether it's Ingram or whoever. He's always been sharing a load, but now he's the guy, and he's in the right offense for that. So yeah, I think him and Derek Carr both as guys that you should hold or buy, but don't give up your kid for him, but definitely buy.
Jamar Chase, this past week wasn't quite as bad as week one. He caught 4 or 5 passes, 35 yards. 19 of that was yards after the catch. But he hasn't quite been, I won't even say quite. He's had a horrible first 2 weeks. Is this a guy that you try to buy low and you think that they'll kind of work their way into form? Or are you kind of stuck with them if you drafted them based on the draft capital that you had to use? And people aren't going, well, I won't say won't buy high, but most people are going to attempt to, 75 cents on the dollar type of situation. But how do you feel about Jamar Chase and that offense going forward?
I love him. I think you should go buy all the Jamar Chase shares you can get. This is the bounce back week. They got the Commanders. It's like the worst team in the league against a wide receiver. So the Jamar, we're gonna see a lot of greedy in this Sunday. They play Sunday or they play Monday?
I believe they play
Sunday night.
on.
I think they got like a Sunday night game.
I believe they play on Sunday. I'm not exactly sure which slate they're in though.
Yeah. So yeah, you're gonna see a lot of that. He should go off. He should go off. I mean, he hasn't. People got to remember with him and also with CD Lamb, these guys haven't been practicing. Right. So they're just getting back into the groove of things. And I think this is the week you're gonna finally get the return on your investment. So I definitely think he's a buy. And if somebody is if you have a Chase owner in your league and he's frustrated and not happy with Kubai, definitely. Mike Evans, if you can get Chase for Mike Evans, take Chase. If there's somebody that want to do that, you know what I'm saying? You just never know. But yeah, I think you should take Chase for sure. I'm buying a lot of Chase shares for sure.
Do you feel the same way about Brandon Ayuk, who's in a similar situation? Didn't do very much practicing, had a very short off season, if you will, due to his contract situation. Mm-hmm. Right now, he's kind of in that lull as well that Chase is experiencing. Do you feel the same way about Brandon Ayuk that you felt about Chase?
Not so much. I think the biggest beneficiary is George Kittle, in my opinion. I think he's the person that's going to see. I think you should buy some George Kittle stock. But as far as Ayuk, I still kind of got him wherever you had him at. He still remained there. So the departure of Deebo Samuel doesn't really move me as much. He may get a few targets, but so will Jennings. They're saying that Purcell may be ready to go soon. So it's going to be spread around. But I think George Kittle is the biggest beneficiary of this Deebo Sanders injury. Him and Mason, for sure.
Over there in Baltimore, we had a little bit of a flip-flop. Week 1, Isaiah Likely had a ton of target share. Mm-hmm. He had a ton of snaps. This past week, Mark Andrews, he was targeted 5 times, which is 15% of the target share. He brought in 4 receptions, 51 yards, and 63% of the snap share, 73% route participation. Isaiah Likely, he hauled in 2 of his 3 targets. So he was at a 9% target share, 26 yards, and he was held to a 49% snap share. And he was a substitute 50% of the time as far as routes were concerned. Is this a changing of the guard? Andrews is another week healthy. He's going to be the guy unless he's not healthy? Or could this change on any given week in your opinion?
2 things can be true. So I think definitely Andrews is the guy, and he's getting healthy and all that good jazz. But at the same time, Monken, I don't even know he know what he's doing. You seen a guy like Zay Flowers first half really getting work, getting busy, and then went cold in the second half. He even retweeted someone else's comment on that. So they already said, well, we didn't bring Derrick Henry here to give him the ball 30 times. Why is he there?
Right.
What? Give him 12 carries? Like, why would you go get him if that's the case? So this offense is kind of up in the air. And what that means is you don't know. And when you don't know, you kind of want to stay away from them all, in my opinion. I wouldn't want to be an Andrews or Likely owner at all unless one of them is hurt. Because if you own both of them, you probably don't know who to play. It's safer to play Andrews, of course. But then when you play Andrews and Likely go off, you're going to be upset yourself. Then when you play Likely, Andrews, like, I should have known better. It's Andrews. So it's just, it's a carousel. And if I feel that way, I'd rather go have somebody I know that's going to be the man. So I don't know.
What type of trade would interest you if you had the Andrews Likely combination, where not necessarily selling low, selling high, but what would you be looking for? Like what level of tight end would you look for in return, and what type of piece would you pair with it?
I would have to see the particulars. But if you can package them, I tell you what, you may can get someone like a Bowers because Andrew's name is a lot higher. And Bowers, he's the rookie, but he's emerging. His first 2 weeks, I think he has more catches than any rookie ever in the history of the game at tight end. Minshew came out and said this guy's going to be special as well. I think for the first 2 weeks, he's had 9 targets both games, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, and he's the man. So if, of course, now this is redraft stuff we're talking about. In the dynasty league, we already know what's going to happen with that. But in the redraft league, yeah, somebody like him before he really pops off, because right now he's creeping. Tight end has really been a cluster. You know the other word so far this season. No tight end has. Laporta hasn't been doing anything. McBride hasn't been really what you thought he was going to be. Kelsey hasn't done anything. Like Pitts hasn't done anything.
Your boy AK, we just knew due to his situation,
you knew he was going to go off. He ain't did nothing. So all tight ends has really been. So why that's still going on before the dust clears, I think Bowers is a good choice. If you can, maneuver that move, somebody maybe that Bowers owner has Lamar Jackson. See, sometimes you have to go off certain little, tidbits of the trade piece. Like, oh, this guy has Bowers and he got Bowers on his bench. Because a lot of people don't have Bowers starting on their redraft teams. He's on the bench. And they may have, another tight end starting. So, yeah, if you can get that guy, for sure. So a guy like him, I would be saying someone I would go for. Other than that, I mean, they're all pretty much cruising at the same level, in my opinion.
How do you feel about Ramondre Stevenson going forward? They did lean on him heavily there in New England in week 2, but Antonio Gibson, he actually led the charge with 11 carries for 96 yards. Ramondre Stevenson had 81 yards, but he had more carries than Gibson had. He had 21 carries for 81. Gibson had 11 for 96.
Mm-hmm.
So is this going to end up being one of those hot hand 1A, 1B situations? Or do we feel like Ramondre is going to kind of be even killed through the rest of the season?
Ramondre is the only offensive player you should be playing from New England Patriots. Period. Don't play no one else. Henry as well. I kind of like Henry if in a deeper league with the tight end because he seems like he's the number 1 target right now in New England. But other than that, don't play nobody else. Don't play no quarterback. Don't play none of the receivers. If you're a fan of the show, if you listen to the show, I spoke about Stevenson. I talk about the coordinators that's there that came from Cleveland. Like, that's what they're going to do. They're going to load them up. Don't run the scheme. And we're seeing that. So, no, I'm not worried about Gibson. 21 carries. I don't care how many yards he had. This boy had 21 carries. That says a lot. This is the new NFL. You don't see very many running backs getting that many carries.
You don't.
He's the clear dog workhorse in this offense. So, I'm not fearing that at all.
How you feeling about Stephon Diggs? Is he a buy or sell for you?
I tell you what, I think Tank Dell is a buy. Buy some of that Tank Dell stock now while he's down. Because everybody's thinking Tank Dell's the forgotten guy. But I do like Stephon Diggs this week because he's going back. He's playing against Minnesota. So he's going to try to stick it to them. I think Stephon Gilmore will probably be on Nico Collins a good bit this game. And you will give Diggs opportunity to do his thing against the number 2 corner there in Minnesota. So I know he's all up for this game. I know he's going to play hard. So I love Diggs this week. But I think you should buy some of the Tank Dell stock and sell the Diggs stock after this week's performance.
And are there any other guys that kind of stick out to you as far as guys that you would be looking to buy or guys that you would be looking to sell at this particular time, regardless of whether it's because they're doing really well and you don't think they're going to be able to sustain it, or because they aren't doing very well and you may want to capitalize on it or cut bait from them. Anybody make those lists for you that we haven't discussed?
Zach Moss. About some of that Zach Moss stock, man. It's been an 80-20 split. He's picked it up. So it's an 80-20 split. As of now, he had 9 carries week 1. Now he's moved up to 12 carries. And those are against 2 tough defenses, New England and Kansas City. But he has Washington this week. I think he gets in the end zone this week. And after Washington, it's Carolina. So he should enjoy the next 2 weeks of the season. And his schedule is not bad at all going down the hill. So I think Zach Moss is a guy that you want to buy. Of course, Laporta, he hasn't been doing much, but I think that's a guy that you want to buy because we know what he's capable of. We see St. Brown get banged up a little bit. So not saying he's going to be injured, but something to keep your eye on. But yeah, I think Laporta's a guy I would like to buy as well. Chris Olave, the time is coming. It's close. Everybody was looking at him to be, again, this Kubiak system. If everybody can remember, I take you back to the Houston Texans when they had Andre Johnson and Adrian. What's my man from Tennessee? Arian Foster.
Right. Yeah.
Kamara is in the Arian Foster role. Remember, Arian Foster is one of the better fantasy backs we've had, when he was healthy in that system. Right. And the targets, we all know Andre Johnson used to be the first receiver off the board in leagues when he was playing. And this is the same scheme, same everything. It's just, so week 2, I did see some good things from Olave. Could have had a touchdown. But moving forward, man, go ahead and get on him now before it gets crazy, because he almost there. He almost there. Let me see if there's someone else I had written down. So I like Laporta. I like Olave. I tell you what, I'm going to tell you a sell. Jameson Williams. Don't get caught up in this thing, man. Sell him. I know everybody's like, oh, yeah, the J-Mo. They want to. I get it. It looks good. It's flashy. It's a red car. It's 2-door sports. Got the wing on the back, the rims, the tires. You got the Armor All on the tires. This is still St. Brown's team, and this is still Laporta. The first 2 weeks, it looked like they have been kind of highlighting him, but he hasn't really been catching a high volume of these passes. 11 targets, I think he caught like 5 of those balls. So, I mean, I think that's somebody you should sell as well. He's somebody that people are kind of getting hyped about, but I would sell him quick. I don't know what you can get for him, but there's some receivers that hasn't really been taken off as of yet. And I would definitely sell J-Mo for them.
And that'll pretty much wrap it up for this show. If you didn't check out yesterday's show, the midweek wrap up where we discussed the week previous, where we're going over college as well as NFL, the show tomorrow will be the Gospel Sports Truth Sports Show, where we pretty much cover just sports in general. A lot of that will be NFL and college as well. For this evening, for the Fantasy Football Show, we are done. And make sure that, again, you subscribe on YouTube at the Gospel STP. Join the Facebook group, the Gospel Sports Truth Facebook group. You'll be able to see the videos of the shows there as well. For this evening, we out. And remember, tell the truth.